Okay, so my name is Billy Watson. I'm here today with Stewart Francis, who's a Canadian comedian.
Yep.
And thanks very much for joining us, Stewart. How are you doing today?
You're welcome. You're more than welcome.
That's cool. So basically, I'd like to talk to you just briefly about how you got started in the entertainment industry. You were a cartoonist originally, is that right?
I drew cartoons. I wanted to be a cartoonist. I sent them out, received rejection letters, and I thought, well, I can't handle that kind of sadness and disappointment in my life. So plan B was to try stand-up comedy, and I did that back in 1989.
1989 was the first time. And when you first started, have you always been this one-liner type of comedian, yeah? Because that come from the cartoon kind of style you had.
Exactly, yeah. Single frame, very much like the Far Side. That's what my cartoons are like. And I'm excited to say that I will be publishing a book of my jokes and cartoons this year. So it's come full circle.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I was reading about that somewhere else. So basically, you weren't wanting to put your old jokes into it, but somebody's convinced you that you've managed to get your jokes in cartoon form for other people who are not necessarily stand-up fans to appreciate.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's going to come out fairly soon, is it? Yeah.
October, so out for the Christmas rush, as they say.
That's good. And are you going to be doing anything to promote that? Any bookshops and stuff?
I'm hoping to.
That's cool. So, when you first started comedy, did you take to it straight away? Were you quite successful straight away, and did you build up a career?
It's successful in the sense that a great sense of accomplishment. So yeah, in that sense, and after about 3 months, I was getting paid for gigs, which was that's accelerated. Oftentimes, you have to do the open mics and amateur nights, as we call them in Canada, for a year or two before you start people considering paying you at all. So yeah, so to have done it and got my first, I did 15 minutes in about 3 months into my career. I did a 15-minute set for 50 Canadian dollars.
Yep, that's quite impressive. I've performed comedy for over 5 years and I'm still not getting paid.
Oh, sorry to hear that. Sorry to have brought it up, but no, it was definitely, I was ahead of the curve, as it were, to get paid, because guys that I started off with doing a couple of amateur nights, 2 years later we're still doing those amateur nights. So I got into it later than a lot of people. So I hit the ground running. But I kind of been unknowingly preparing for my first gig for a couple of years prior to it.
That's pretty cool. So I read somewhere that you were quite well established in Canada, and then you've come to the Edinburgh Festival. Was it the first time in 1997 with Glenn Wool and Craig Campbell?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say I was well established. I've been doing it for better part of 7 years. So I'm still not well established in Canada, even though I've done everything you could possibly do over there. I was a game show host. I was on an award-winning sitcom. So yeah, we don't have a star system in Canada. So I knew that I had a bigger challenge somewhere else, and I knew that UK was going to be where I needed to go. So I've been coming over part-time. In 1997, that's when we did our first Fringe Festival. So that kind of really planted the seed that I've got to come over here for on a permanent basis, and I did that 7 years ago. So and I haven't looked back. It's been absolutely a wonderful ride.
That's cool. So when you first came the first time, were you, Craig Campbell, and Glenn all based in Canada, and you were quite reasonably well established there, and then you've come together, or how did that kind of collaboration come about?
Craig and I had worked together maybe 3 or 4 years prior to that in Canada. We did a Western tour together. And I think he was starting to come over to the UK more often. I've been coming over to the UK and Scotland. That's where my family are from. I've been coming over to Scotland all my life. So, and Glenn, I met that year because he started doing comedy back in Canada, and he was traveling the world, I think, mostly Europe, just traveling. And he ended up in Edinburgh. I think Craig and Glenn had known each other from Canada, so we had Glenn on as a guest lumberjack, and then that was in 1998. He was a fully fledged fee-paying lumberjack.
So then it was the three of you basically were on the bill for the second year.
Exactly.
So you must have had good fun doing that because obviously your careers have went separate ways in the meantime. But last year at the festival, you got together and basically put on a show again, yeah?
Yep, correct. Return of the Lumberjacks,
Return of the
and that's what
Lumberjacks.
we're now doing. We're promoting the tour that we're going to actually tour the Lumberjacks show
Uh-huh.
starting April 17th.
Yeah, when I heard that you done that last year, I was quite surprised because the three of you in your own right, each one of you could do an hour easily and get fill a fairly sizable room, I'm sure. So why did you decide to do 20 minutes each and with a guest
Uh,
swap?
yeah, just because to return to the 15 years ago. So
All
it was
right, okay.
a kind of a reunion, as it were. Even though we're individuals, but reunited in the sense that sharing the same stage.
All right.
Yeah, and last year I was on tour too, so I took time out from my actual tour, outstanding in field, and I did the summer with the boys. So, and we kind of always kind of had an inkling that we would be going on tour this year. So it's come to fruition. We're doing it.
That's cool. So when you were doing the show with the other two last year, did you have your own show or were you there purely just for that show?
Say again. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
When you were in Edinburgh doing the show, The Return of the Lumberjacks,
Yep.
were you doing anything else in Edinburgh or were you just there for that show for the 3 weeks?
Oh, just for that show. It was I was purposely there just for that show, and I was asked to do other shows, but I just wanted to focus on the Lumberjacks and just hang out with the boys.
All right.
And also, we love Edinburgh, and it's very special for all of us for many reasons. But we wanted to really put on a great show, and it is a great show. You're getting three top acts for the price of one, and the idea of a guest lumberjack was just an added bonus for the punters, and it was so well received. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do the guest lumberjack during the tour because we'll be in back and beyond, and it's hard to get people to come out. We've got 3 London shows that will have guest lumberjacks, but that was such a wonderful thing to watch. Big names like Jimmy Carr and Milton Jones, and just see the audience react with great surprise when they were introduced as guest lumberjacks.
Yeah, they must have thought they were getting good value for money already, and then you brought out somebody like Jimmy Carroll.
Exactly.
I heard Stewart
And
was
on
on it
top
as
of
well.
that,
Yeah.
Harry Hill, and it was just terrific to have been a part of that.
Yep. So I take it that must have got great reviews then, and that's kind of inspired you to go on tour with it, yeah?
We got really nice reviews, but we kind of already knew that we were going to go on tour with this year, so we've already talked about it. And unless something went horribly wrong during the course of the Fringe run, we fully intended to go on tour this year.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you're quite 3 different styled comedians as well. You're the one-liner, then Craig is the storyteller, and kind of Glenn's got his own unique squint in the world. So the audience is getting a good.
One-liners. So yeah, it's up for everyone, and each of us will bring fans to the show and introduce those fans to other styles of comedy. So we hopefully will all walk away with a new fan base.
Yep, that's pretty cool. So you kind of really established yourself as a kind of not necessarily a household name, but you're quite well known in Britain, I would say, in comedy. People know about comedy since your appearance on Michael McIntyre, the Roadshow. Do you think that done anything for you? Am I right in saying that? Did that kind of open up your audience quite a lot?
Well, the big show was Mock the Week, and that's put me on a lot of people's radar, and I've done upwards of 15 of those. And then with repeats, it's just every night there seems to be an episode I'm on. So I think Mock the Week first and foremost.
Right.
McIntyre's Roadshow was huge, and it was a fantastic one because I got to do it in Edinburgh, which is where my family's from. And Live at the Apollo, I've done a couple of those. So, but I think Mock the Week was definitely the show that I look to having kind of opened a lot of people's eyes to me.
Yeah, I watched your last DVD today, which I thought was fantastic. Really amazing to keep up that quality of one-liners for the hour. There's some brilliant jokes in there. And then I seen you on Mock the Week. I was just wondering about how you wrote for Mock the Week. What was the setup of that? Did you kind of have your material to kind of fit it into their thing, or did you have to come up with one-liners, which might be quite difficult? How did you find the experience of working on that, and did it suit your particular style?
Well, experience it's challenging. I'll say that much, because it's 2.5 hours that we record, and that's edited down to a half hour for TV consumption. So, but you do know what you're going to do. So when the wheel is spun, it's not a surprise to us. We've told them essentially what we're going to be doing. So if that weren't the case, it would be awful television, because it would be just a spontaneous a moment where a comedian is just hemming and hawing, trying to think of something to say on the topic. So you get a wee heads up, and also they give us like they'll let us know that what we might talk about. So you kind of have to prepare stuff. But as far as the show itself, it's challenging in that there's 7 of us sharing one microphone. So it's just like in a conversation, if there's only one person can talk at a time, so the other 6 are waiting to kind of come in with some humorous aside. So it's challenging in that sense, but they edit it together, brilliantly, and it comes off all this polished show that it is.
Yeah, I saw you today. I saw you squeeze that carbon emission jokes in. You managed to put that one in quite well. It's a really good joke, that.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, over the course of the conversation, you might think of one of your gags for the shows, and just you put it in, and hope for the best. Hope it makes it through the edit.
Okay. So was that any rivalry amongst the comedians on that, or was it fairly jovial and everyone helping each other, or was there any kind of backstabbing and stuff like that?
If there is, I haven't been witness to it. Just a lovely bunch of guys. I socialize with them. We're all in. We're in it together, but we are definitely individuals. So I've never sensed any rivalry whatsoever. They've been nothing but gracious and hospitable to me, and most people for that matter. The challenge is, as mentioned, just trying to get your voice heard. And for the most part, Dara is very much like a policeman on the stage, or a traffic cop, because you can't see him on camera, but he'll be pointing to so and so go next, and then he'll. It's very much like an air traffic controller. So he's, as well as being the funny host that he is, he's also making sure that everyone gets heard.
Oh, that's really good. That's interesting. You've obviously done very well in that, because you got asked back quite a few times. I think your one-liners work quite well in that show. So now you're moving on to, you're writing a sitcom. Is that right?
Yes, very excited about that. We're just waiting to, we have the production companies involved, and the next step is to take it to a network and see if we can get a pilot made, which I'm quite optimistic that will be the case. So that will be a phenomenal accomplishment in my career, and it's very funny, if I do say so myself, and I can see it in my mind's eye being on TV, and so yeah, baby steps, get a pilot made and see if it gets commissioned after that.
Okay, so the first thing you do is you've got an idea, and you take that to a production company, and then you get them interested, and they make a proposal to the TV show, yeah?
That seems to be the evolution of it. I think sometimes you can go, if you've got a high profile, you can kind of cut out the middleman and go directly to a network, but production companies do have to get involved, and that's probably the more difficult task, is to get a production company involved, because they receive all kinds of scripts, so they pick and choose which ones they think that they can sell to a network. So that if you want a production company over, then that's more than half the battle. Hopefully they have a great relationship with a number of networks that they can take it to, BBC 3 or whatever. If they're not happy, then we'll try ITV or the difficult part is to get a production company in your corner.
So you've said that you're very excited about it. I believe the show is going to be based around you and the kind of your life. Like, I don't know if you've seen it, but Jim Jeffries has got a show, Going Legit, I think it's called, or Legit, where it's kind of.
Well, yeah, you write what you know. So I've written another show in which I was just not just, but I was one of the writers. It was like a show about a show type thing. So it was and I pitched that to 3 production companies. All 3 were excited about it, but the first production company said, it'd be better if you were a star of it, because of your profile here, so you want to cash in on that. So I rewrote the show altogether, so it's just a day in the life of me, not literally, because that would be quite boring. So it's a very it's a hilarious day in the life of me, as opposed to just a normal day in the life of me. So it's
So is it a
yeah,
bit like Curb Your Enthusiasm with Larry David, like a kind of
well, yeah, it's funny you should mention, because that's a big part of the first episode I've written is I wouldn't say an homage to Curb Your Enthusiasm, but it's definitely referred to multiple times in it. And so yes, it's not unlike that, but at the same time making fun of that kind of genre.
Okay. And you've also mentioned it's a bit like Family Guy. You're going to have like cutaways from like you're thinking something, and then you'll see that thing getting played out. Like you can do easily in
Exactly. So
cartoons.
it's like a live version of Family Guy, where Peter will say, "I haven't been this nervous," and to him being nervous, and usually with a huge payoff, because that's one of the best shows going as far as I'm concerned. So it's like a live version of that.
Okay, so that sounds pretty good. So when you basically have to wait to see how the pilot goes before you know if that's going to go ahead, yeah. But good luck with that anyway.
Absolutely. So the pilots, that's the thing. That's the baby. If it's and the other pilots, like Milton Jones had a fantastic pilot that made it to air, and then it's still waiting to get picked up, but it wasn't picked up initially. It was disheartening, because to me, as a friend of his, and I can imagine it must be terribly disheartening for him, because it's such a good show. So oftentimes pilots just that's there's still a lot of work to be done after. Just because it becomes a pilot doesn't mean it's going to get picked up necessarily. So it's a weird process, because good shows don't make it, and bad shows too. So it's, I don't know what happens along the line, but yeah. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
Well, I was going to say, what do you think about television shows these days? I think Stewart Lee was on recently, when he was releasing talking about this alternative comedy show that he's doing. That basically, the producers are scared of doing something a little bit risque, so the kind of all the comedy gets watered down and it becomes bland. So no really good stuff that is exceptional that few people will get. Then it just becomes like mush for everyone, the masses. Do you think that's something you're having to fight against a little bit?
I guess that's part of the process, and that's my understanding, is that oftentimes the whoever gets involved, they're thinking on behalf of the punters, which is unfortunate, because it's sometimes you might they're not going to get that, or that's too inside, or that's too much like something else. So as opposed to just I'm thinking funny's funny, just put it out there and see what comes of it. But oftentimes there's I think people can meddle into it, and as long as they're not coming in with an agenda, a selfish agenda. If it's for the betterment of the show, then so be it. But I'll see how that plays out. I've never done this before, so it's I'm open to suggestions.
So what have you done?
It could be very frustrating as a performer, as a creator of something, to have it censored or try to alter it, because it might take away from the original intent of humor.
Yeah, I think the phrase is getting it deballed.
Yeah, but it's if it's for the right reasons, then
fair enough. Yeah.
As disappointing as it might be, it's for the greater good, I guess. But if people are coming in just to stick their nose in because that's what they're kind of supposed to do, as opposed to for the betterment of the show, then that's where I think it can get quite fraught.
Uh-huh. So have you just worked on this first pilot episode? You've obviously not read the whole
series.
So
it's in the hands of the production company, and so hopefully they'll shop it around and get a couple of sniffs, and hopefully the next thing I hope to hear from my agent is we want to go ahead with this. That means that I then add more to the script and try to come up with the finished product for a pilot and film it and see what happens.
Yep. And then how was that process? Did you get any help with writing the pilot? Have you done that kind of thing before? Just going from writing one-liners to like a 30-minute pilot on a show.
Well, I was raised by television, so television is definitely something that I'm very familiar with. So it's very gag driven is my idea, and it moves quickly. So if you're a fan of my style of comedy, you'll love this kind of stuff. And a lot of it's a lot of it's surreal, to say the very least. But it's all not in a self-indulgent way. I think sometimes surreal comedians it's a little self-indulgent and just a little too weird for the masses. I think that the Powell, like this is I think people will be drawn to it, and especially if you're a fan of my comedy, it's just silly. It's my cartoons. It's a cartoon, but in really.
Oh, that sounds really interesting. I do hope it gets made. I would like to see that.
Yeah, me too.
Again, and I watched your DVD today, and I've seen Stu Francis from Cracker Jack. I just wanted to ask you if you thought about giving him a cameo in it at some point. Have you ever met him?
Absolutely, absolutely. That was. I'm so grateful for him to have allowed us to use a clip on my DVD.
Actually, I posted that song.
We have to get permission, and so yeah, absolutely.
I posted that song on Facebook a couple of weeks ago. For some reason, I just stumbled upon it, and I could crush it great. And I was quite surprised that you got permission. Yeah, and the great Suprendo as well, Supremo or something, the guy that introduces it. So.
Yeah. So I'm not overly familiar with Stu Francis. Obviously, I've heard all my life over here that there was a guy that presented a kid show called Cracker Jack. So similarity in the name. So I'd never seen it. That was the first time I'd ever seen him. Right. And it's been mentioned to me by my wife and some other people how much he look alike. So it was interesting to have him involved. And he's from Bolton. My father's from Manchester, so I don't know what my father was up to up in that neck of the woods, but there's somewhat of a resemblance. And it was lovely again to have had him involved in it. And anybody that doesn't know the Cracker Jack thing, even if they don't know that, like I've got some Canadian friends that have copies of it. I think they'll get the humor in that, it's an introduction of a guy named Stewart Francis, and it's got me even. I don't want to wreck it. Spoiler alert, but yeah, I'm very, very grateful to be allowed to do it. But we're not making fun of him. We're just all we're doing is just commenting on the similarity of our names.
Yeah. And did you meet him at all? Have you met him?
No, I've never met him. That was the first time I've seen a clip of him. I've heard of him numerous times, and that's the actual first time I've ever seen a clip of him.
I just wondered maybe if you give him a cameo in your show at some point, and comment on that somehow.
Well, yeah, that would be great if the show gets picked up, and there'll be episodes that we need to put some content in, and I can't see why that wouldn't happen. And I guess just as a sign of gratitude for allowing us to use the clip in the first place.
That's cool. So last year's festival, I wanted to ask you won the award for the best joke at the Fringe.
Yeah.
With the Posh and Beck's joke. Yeah.
Yes.
So the guy that won it the year before, I think Nick Helm, he said it was kind of stupid to choose from one joke from all the millions going on at the festival. What do you think about getting that honour, and do you think that's something you can have a best joke at the festival?
I love it. I'm all over it, and it's a weird kind of process because a lot of these judges go out to the show, so obviously it wasn't the best joke for the festival. It was deemed that, but it's nice to get recognized. So it gave me some. I was trending fourth in the world at one time on Twitter, which my understanding is a good thing, and it became newsworthy back in Canada because I did some interviews on the news program, news back in Canada, which is incredible because I couldn't get a rest over there. So it's amazing that a joke that I did at the festival over here would get that kind of acclaim back home. So it was wonderful. It was a real nice 48 hours of my life, and but and it was a surprise too because I just heard from my publicist that it's won. And then I knew that like 2 weeks before it was announced. That was kind of weird, kind of having that insight and that secret that I must keep from the public.
Yeah. So you won it during the festival, but 2 weeks before the end. So that's like the first
week.
I
won it.
It must have been chosen.
I knew like a week, maybe a week and a half before it was announced. So each night I was doing the joke, and I was tempted to say, by the way, that's the that was the best joke of the Fringe that you just heard, but I couldn't. So I was sworn to secrecy.
Yeah, I guess it's just something that people can write about and talk about that helps get. It's a useful tool basically to get your name out there. These type of awards. Yeah. You also had number 8, I think.
It was good publicity. It was good for the show too because we noticed it spiked the audience numbers because even though three of us have high profiles, we're not recognized as the Lumberjacks because the show was called, Return of the Lumberjacks. Someone reading a guide or a program, they don't know the Lumberjacks from Adam. So it then allowed our three faces to be attached to that show, which then kind of brought people out to put bums in seats,
That's cool.
as they say.
So your mates were pleased with you as well then.
Yep.
I was just wondered actually how you sat down, to write jokes. Do things happen and something will appear to you and then you note it down, or do you sit down for 8 hours a day and write and maybe 3 of them will be ones you'll use, and then how do you try them on stage? Do you go to small clubs and do you have a three joke telling rule? If it doesn't work, then you'll drop it. What's your kind of process?
Just as and when, like I'll be carrying on my normal activities over the course of the day, and something will hit me and I'll write it down. I don't consciously, I don't sit down and write. That's not the way my brain operates. I talk to myself a lot, and just in talking to myself, things come up, and just write them out in the old joke book. And then, a month before I'm about to go on tour, I just really start to get it locked into my brain, like as an actor would approach a play and get the script memorized. That's what I start to do. Prior to the tour last year, I went to a couple of my favorite comedy clubs and just did short sets there, and just try to do different sets each night, and just try to get it memorized is the key thing, because writing them is not the easy part, but it's easier than actually memorizing all these jokes, because there's quite a few of them in the course of a show.
Yeah, well, I was thinking that watching you today, you've obviously basically must have took it in 5-minute sections and totally mastered that. Then after a period, pieced them all together. It seems like quite a challenge to do that. Rather than tell a long story for 5 minutes, you can kind of meander whatever.
Yeah, well, yeah. With mine, it has to be word perfect, because it's all about the words when you're one-liner guy. So, yeah, a storyteller has the luxury of, not, can change, chop it and change. The payoff's always the same. So the story takes, the listener to, the punchline, as it were. Whereas mine, every word needs to be in the right place. So it doesn't need to be, but that's just the way I've approached it. So it's just memorizing it. That's the difficult part.
Mm-hmm. See, are you always confident when you've got a joke that it'll work? And do you kind of know which ones are going to get the big laughs and which ones less? Or are you surprised when you try something and it works, or not so good, or better, or that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. The higher your profile, the less funny the joke needs to be. So it's just you've got to keep the high level of gags. That's because if I did a joke that's so, if I did that 10 years ago when I was less known, the audience would just stare at me. Whereas now, all is forgiven, because presumably they're my fans, so they'll laugh. But I always want to keep a high standard of my of joke writing. So it's
So how do you watch for that then?
But I do. The longer I do it, like anybody does anything, that they get a sense of what they've just done is good or not. So I have a pretty good way of assessing my work without, I've got a critical eye, but I'll think, that's something, and I can't wait to do it on stage.
Because you said that your first DVD was like 21 years of material, and then you've done the second one a couple of years later, and you're quite pleased with them getting up to that kind of standard again.
Absolutely. Many have said, and no disrespect for the first DVD, that the second one they preferred, which is, I can't tell you how proud I was of that accomplishment. So, 21 years accumulated material for the first DVD, first tour. 18 months later, I wrote the new tour and subsequent DVD. So, and people saw that as being the stronger of the two. That's speaking to what I was, exactly what I was saying. Like, I wanted to keep a high standard. I don't want money for old rope. If I don't have enough tour in me, I won't do it. Like in the form of quality gags. But if I do, then I'll obviously entertain that notion.
So what's this tour you're doing now? Is this a mixture of old? Are you bringing some new stuff into it?
I stress that it be advertised as new material and previously loved material, but I'm leaning heavily towards it all being new material. Just again, because I feel I owe the audience that much. But we'll see how it plays out. If I've got 16 minutes of new gags, I'm going to have to fill the other 4 minutes, 9 minutes with material, so it might be old stuff. But my intention as we speak is to have it all new material. But I've advertised it as not being that case, so
Gives you some
we'll
leeway
see.
just in case you're...
If the new gags aren't getting laughs, then I'll do some of the classics.
Yeah, it's good to have that kind of little bit of pressure valve you can fall back on if necessary.
Exactly. I don't want to approach it. I want this to be a fun experience for me and obviously for the audience. But I made sure that made it abundantly clear, because I have so much respect for the audience. I don't want to mislead them in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, well, I think it was Eddie Izzard got in trouble once because he just, he finishes a tour and he starts a new tour by talking about his old stuff, and then after a period it will change. But he came back with stuff that had been released on a DVD, but he hadn't performed in the UK. But then people had seen the DVD, so he was accused of, just ripping people off. So it's better that you've warned them anyway, so the audience can't complain about that.
Yeah, I don't want any audience to complain about that. Like, each tour has been new material. Like, so yeah, that's just the way it's got to be done. Or it's got to be advertised, which I've done in this case. I've advertised that it's going to be old. There's going to be old stuff, but just the creative side of me, the professional side of me, just likes the idea of doing all new gags for this tour with the boys.
Yep, and I guess if you get the new material, then that's your working towards your next DVD as well, your next solo DVD. So
yeah, it'd be interesting. So I don't know why I do it. Like it's all about professional. I try to be ethical. Yeah. So it's almost I feel kind of talking about using the term money for old rope. If I did a new tour, even though it's my own tour, it'd be weird for me to use material from this upcoming tour.
Yeah.
But we'll see as if that happens. If the sitcom takes off, then who knows about touring? So it's going to be a year of it's a new adventure. So we'll see how this year plays out, and then as to future endeavors.
And is there any plans to record the Lumberjacks on tour?
To record it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's not talk of that. We're doing an autumn leg of the tour, so ticket sales are good. Everybody seems to be quite excited about it. It's a good old show. It's just a matter of getting the word out there, because it's called the Lumberjacks, to let people know that it's me, Craig Campbell, and Glenn Wolf. So it's hopefully word will get out there, and obviously the people like you helping spread the word. So yeah, based on that kind of momentum, that might kind of the crescendo could be a DVD or some kind of recording.
Just one final thing. I've actually heard that you maybe thought about doing a chat show with the three of you set in a log cabin in Canada. Is that like just getting...
chat show / Pee-wee's Playhouse, kind of the three of us living in a cabin. So there's talk of it spinning into a TV show as well, which there's one production company that's already interested in that kind of concept. So yeah, we'll see. That could be an interesting adventure in and of itself. But that's exactly what might come out of this.
Okay, well, it sounds like you're going to have lots of fun on the tour anyway. It starts on start of April, around about then, yeah?
Yep, absolutely, April 17th. And then we announce the autumn dates in the next month or so, I think.
Yeah, people can go to your website to get the full dates there and pick up tickets.
StewartFrancis.com.
So that's great, Stuart. Thanks very much for taking that time to chat to me today.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time, and thanks for helping spread the word.
Yeah, no worries. Good luck with the tour, and I definitely hope to see this.
Pal. We'll see you down the road.
Yep, I hope to see this sitcom. Looking forward to that.
Yes, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. We'll chat then, too.
Okay, cheers, mate. Good luck. Bye-bye.
Okay, cheers. Bye.